Kyle, do you plan on announcing a number 2 quarterback, or are you going to wait till right before the game? And is that something that could rotate week to week throughout the season? How do you see that?
Yes, all that. I would think probably announce it before we play Pittsburgh, but not this game.
Do you think you could rotate throughout the week?
Definitely. Yeah, definitely.
Now, back to Willard and Dibs on 95.7 The Game.
I mean, look, bottom line, that kind of questioning is just out of line from the media. Honestly, what kind of leading questions trying to pin Kyle Shanahan into some sort of controversy was that, Larry? Ridiculous.
Grilling him. Absolute grilling.
Who do you think you are?
I want to get to the bottom of it. Give me answers. I want the truth.
You can't handle the truth.
Larry Krueger, everybody, on Willard and Dibs. Here he is. He was out at 49er practice, and I was just reading the longest tweet of all time that you sent, which all kinds of bullet points from practice today. But, we'll certainly let you kind of take us through it and start with the quarterbacks, although it sounds like more of the same, right? Like Brock looked pretty good. Sam, you think maybe he's in the process of solidifying the 2, and Trey Lance kind of up and down. But how would you put it into words?
Well, Mark, it's interesting because, today every practice has a little bit of a theme. Today's practice, it was long, it was hot, it was an afternoon practice, it went over 2 hours, it was sloppy, there was penalties, drops. It just appeared that there was a lack of focus. And so Purdy's numbers didn't look very good. I think he was 12 of 21. But at the end of practice, to me, that's where he really just dominated in the red zone. He had a deep ball to Juice down the seam that he just put over both defenders, and just a beautiful pass. And then 2 plays later, he throws an absolute dime on a slant to Ayuk. Then he throws an in-cutter to Chris Conley, hit him right in the hands, and then he finished it with a touchdown to Debo on just a corner route that he threw with just, it was like he dropped it in his lap. It was really, really good. So, yeah, Purdy's looking sharp, and that's a good thing, obviously, with the the season just around the corner. Darnold started really hot. I mean, he looked good early. He was 6 of 7 and then kind of cooled off a little bit. Lance came out firing BBs. I mean, really throwing the ball hard. But he was high on all of his throws. Like, I don't know that a receiver got a finger on any of his first 4 throws, and he even threw a screen pass that ricocheted off of TDP's face mask. But then Lance, warmed up, and he hit a couple of short throws, one to the 2 and one to I forget who it was.
Anthony Miller.
Oh, it was Anthony Miller,
yeah,
the newest 49er. And they were the kinds of throws, guys, that he really struggles with, but he put them right there. Perfect tempo, perfect height. Everything was right on. So, maybe he came out today throwing rockets, and then he kind of warmed up and started playing real well at the end.
What do you think about the battle for the 2? And I know that Kyle Shanahan in the cut that we played on the way in says, it might change week to week. It could be a vacillation sensation. But do you feel like that the job has already been cemented to go to Sam Darnold?
Dibs, it's funny. It's like I think probably that's the case. But, man, Lance, you guys were down at practice. Lance is right there, neck and neck. And I think the fans have now, after a couple preseason games, kind of see that, it's literally series to series or throw to throw. I thought Lance looked better than Darnold in the second preseason game. But in that first preseason game, I thought Darnold clearly looked better. So if you had me guess, I would say week 1, number 2 will be Sam Darnold, that they may not even announce it until literally 90 minutes or whenever he's forced to announce it, in the pregame. But that they may go week to week, and I don't know, use it as a dangling carrot to motivate both guys. It may have something to do with how they want to use the quarterback scout team. Will it be the games that where Lance is similar to the opposing quarterback? Maybe he'll be number 2. I'm not sure exactly how they're going to do it. I don't know that they know for sure, but my guess is you're right, that Darnold will start as the number 2 in week 1.
Larry Krueger with us, hanging after 49er practice on Willard and Dibs. Hey, I want to follow up there. You thought Trey Lance looked better than Sam Darnold in game 2? I understand the way it finished, but I mean, I'll be honest with you. It feels to me like you're sort of ignoring the way it started for Trey.
Well, I mean, I didn't like, there's a really only, I went through it with a fine-tooth comb, Mark. The only 2 passes I really didn't like, obviously the pick, and that's a struggle, that he struggles on those little dump-offs, when there's a defender in between. He's got to create a little bit more space and loft it over the defender. It was if you watch it again, it was a really nice play by the defender. The one that I really didn't like was when he had Willie Snead on kind of a deep over route, and the window was open, and he's got to rip that, and he just didn't. And then he threw late, and it was like over Snead's right shoulder. That was the worst throw. But, I mean, Lance went 8 of 10 in the final 2 drives and looked pretty good. And I thought some of the 20 and 25-yard deep cut patterns were some of the best throws I've seen any Niner quarterback make this entire preseason thus far. So maybe I was a little wowed by the way he finished. But I thought he was slightly better than Darnold for sure in the preseason game number 2.
What other battles are you looking at, Larry, in terms of the camp and the roster? And Mark and I were talking about next Tuesday. We're going to do our Red and Gold Summit out in San Ramon, and Cut Down Day happens an hour before our show. Who do you look at on the roster who might qualify as a surprise cut next Tuesday?
Well, it's interesting, Dibs, because the nickelback, Isaiah Oliver, was given a 2-year deal. And, they obviously expected him to be on the roster. But I think Quantrez Knight in some ways has outplayed him, and they have other options at the nickelback spot. So, I mean, is Oliver going to make the team? I mean, Steve Wilkes seemed to indicate yesterday in our conversation that Oliver was going to make the team, but I think that's still up in the air. And then I think who's going to be the swing tackle, I don't think that player is in this camp. If I had to bet, I'd bet that they were going to trade for a swing tackle. And then the backup defensive lineman, I mean, you got Jackson, Armstead, Hargrave, Bosa when he signs, Cleveland Farrell, Kevin Givens, T.Y. McGill, Marlon Davidson. I think 8 of the 10 guys are pretty solid. But I don't know about those last 2 spots. I don't know if Kinlaw's on this team. I don't know if Robert Beal's going to make it despite being a 5th-round pick. I don't know if Kerry Hyder or Austin Bryant are going to be back. So I think there's a lot of questions to be answered on that defensive line for sure.
Larry Krueger, did you just say you don't know if Javon Kinlaw is going to be on the team?
Yeah, I don't. I mean, he's had some good practices for sure, but Mark, they really. I mean, look what they just gave up 6.6 yards per carry to Denver. And he's got to be that run plugger in the middle, and he hasn't plugged the run in the middle, and he's only has 1.5 sacks in his career. If there's a better defensive tackle out there in the waiver wire for them to have, I don't think it's a slam dunk that Kinlaw's on the team. I mean, I think he probably is, but it's not for sure in my mind.
Yeah, I mean, that's a shocker in terms of the drafted spot. And you mentioned Isaiah Oliver, too, Larry. Is it as much or as simple as just the amount of tackles that he's missed in these couple of games we've seen?
Well, I mean, you saw the touchdown that he gave up to Keelan Cole in the Raider game where he trailed that from behind and didn't close when the ball was in the air. He also missed a tackle in this last game. That was kind of a solo tackle. Steve Wilkes Dibs kind of made it seem like that, unlike having one nickelback, that he may actually prefer to have 2 nickelbacks and do it situationally. If you have a nickel, or if you have a slot receiver that's a big bodied guy, because there's 2 types of slots, right? There's the small, shifty slot, and I think Diamador Lenore is going to be on that guy. And then when they go to the big slot receivers, I think they don't feel comfortable with Lenore because of his size limitations, and they'd like Oliver to play the big slot receivers. So, I don't know. To me, you put your best cover corner out there, and I think Lenore is clearly better. And I think there may be some other cheaper options than Isaiah Oliver, but they did sign him. They did give him a 2-year deal. It would be an uncomfortable move for them to have to cut him, but I don't think he definitely will not have that nickel or that slot corner job all to himself.
Larry, what's your level of Bosa concern?
None. I have no concern about Bosa. I do think it gets done in the next couple days. If it's not done in the next couple days, I start to be mildly concerned. I mean, Mark, you know that how in great shape that guy is, but there's a difference between walking around shape and football shape. And to me, it would be very risky to give a guy the kind of money that they are going to give him, that we all know they're going to give him, and not get him any live reps until Heinz Field. I think that would be a mistake. I think you got to get him some live reps in practice at the very least. He doesn't have to play in the Charger game, but I think he's got to get some live reps in practice before that Week 1 game in Pittsburgh.
You're listening to 95.7 The Game, KGMZ FM and HD1 San Francisco, always live on the free Odyssey app, Twitch and YouTube, powered by First NorCal Credit Union.
And Larry Krueger here on 95.7 The Game. You reported on your very expansive tweet, and shout out you paying $8 a month to get all the characters you need there, Larry, and I appreciate it. But the Lenore fight with J.P. Mason, was this just a minor tussle? Was it Draymond and Jordan Poole? How would you characterize this little mini brawl?
Jordan Mason, it was the second play of 11-on-11's Dibs, and it's an afternoon practice. They've been practicing a lot in the morning. So you know Santa Clara in the afternoon. It's warm. When it gets warm, things get testy. So Fred Warner started it by kind of hurling. You know how they tap down on the running back? They just tap him on the shoulder. And, well, Warner kind of grabbed him and kind of threw him backwards and had kind of a lot of attitude and started saying stuff. And Mason kind of twisted out of that, kept running down the field. And then Lenore kind of battled him a couple times, and they both kept going with second and third efforts at each other. And it looked just like a football play. And then all of a sudden, man, Lenore's throwing blows and Mason's throwing blows. And, guys are like, hey, and all of a sudden everybody jumped in. So it kind of came out of nowhere. It was just good. I mean, it didn't mar the practice, but Shanahan did kind of give the defense a stern yelling, like, hey, look, tap them down, don't throw them backwards. And he kind of verbally chastised the defense. He kind of sided, it sounded like, with the offense after the brawl.
Well,
you just want to see them with the extra pushing and shoving.
Yeah, there's an offensive coach for you. Larry Krueger with us. I just got this while we're talking about concerns. What about kicker, Larry? Is it just Jake Moody no matter what, or how does this play out if he doesn't get more consistent?
Well, I mean, Mark, it's not Jake Moody no matter what. I mean, they invested a third-round pick in Jake Moody, but this is a Super Bowl caliber team that's ready to win now. And if Jake Moody shows that he's not ready to win, I don't know that he gets cut, but they have a plan B and they got a plan C right now until Robbie Gould gets signed. Gould's sitting at home. He's a phone call away. He's never missed in the playoffs. And then you got Zane Gonzalez. And Zane Gonzalez is a veteran kicker who they will be able to trade at the cutdown for a day 3 draft choice because he's better than 3 or 4 of the number 1 kickers on other teams. And he's kicked 55 and 57 yarders in this camp. So it's not like he's some guy with a 45-yard field goal type leg. So they've got options. They've got options for sure. They invested a third in Moody. They envision Moody being a cheap and an effective kicker for the next decade, I'm sure. But if he doesn't happen right away, I don't think they'll force it. I think they could always, if there's a number of different options they would have, and they could go with Zane Gonzalez, they could cut them both and go with call Robbie Gould and say, Robbie, come in for a little bit less. How about it?
Yeah, crazy. Mark has an expression, Niners have 99 problems, but a Mitch ain't one. Is Mitch actually a problem now? He hasn't looked good, Larry, punting the football.
You know, it's funny, Gibbs, he hurt his back lifting weights in the offseason, and I don't think they have any real concern, but let's be honest. You saw the game this weekend. He shanked 2 punts, and they both went like 30, 35 yards. So, I mean, this is another guy they invested a high pick in. I think he was like a 4th-round punter, right? So they're expecting him to be the guy. They haven't brought in any other punters to try out. So I think it's his job, but, you know, I'm sure it's something that they're monitoring. And I don't think it necessarily was back-related. I just think that he shanked a couple punts.
All right, Larry, great stuff out there again tomorrow. I have no doubt. Any insight on how you think the quarterbacks are going to be laid out in Friday's game?
You know, it's funny. Shanahan was asked if he's going to play his regulars in that game, and he seemed to indicate that he's not adverse to doing it. But I gotta think it's no Purdy and it's Brandon Allen playing in the fourth quarter and Lance and Darnold sharing up front. But I guess there's a chance Purdy could play a series like he did this last game. But my guess is that it's a lot of Darnold, a lot of Lance, and the fourth quarter to Brandon Allen.
Okay, my man. We're looking forward to it. Thanks for hopping on and laying it out for us.
Hey, anytime, fellas.